time is 7:03. I'd like to call the Thursday, January 2nd, 2025 Nottingham Budget Committee meeting to order. Please rise for pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Karen, can you please start the roll?
Karen Quinn. Donna Danis.
Tim DeBrio.
Owen Fred Gray.
Michael Kelly. Jeffrey Morrison.
Sandra Jones.
Charlotte Fife.
Jill Eldridge. Danielle Roy.
And Bob Kelly is excused. Public comment. Come on, we got a public member behind me? No comments? Fine. Okay.
We haven't had a public before, you know.
Final town budget review. So, we have several versions here, in front of us. Ones that are things we're more familiar with seeing, others that are, what gets reported up to the state on the standard MS forms. Ellen or Tim, would you mind going through and then just giving us a highlight maybe of what's changed from last time we looked at these, which was 3 weeks ago?
We discussed it, and there were no additional changes made at the Board of Selectmen level.
There you go, that's easy enough summary. No changes since the last time we looked at it. So, purpose of this meeting, this is sort of our last time to look at this prior to the public comment and then the final vote on what we're going to be putting on the ballot in about 2 weeks. So I'd like to open up the floor and ask if folks have any particular items that they'd like to go through, anything they want to look at. I have a sort of overarching concept that I would like to discuss and put into the discussion, but it's going to take me a bit to get through all of that. So I'm wondering in the interim, before I go through something a little more holistic, if there were any different versions that people wanted to talk about, or different variants, different changes, anything they wanted to discuss, any opinions they had on specific items, things that they thought would be good for the board to hear.
The only thing I wonder about is, like, we haven't really gotten anything on warrant articles from you guys, right? I mean, it's here, but
We've seen probably not the wording of them, but
Wording
we've
will come
seen
to the public
okay,
hearing.
that's
the
it.
numbers.
And essentially, all they're doing is funding the, I'm sorry about my photocopying skills, they obviously lack. They're just funding the existing capital reserve fund and expendables trust funds.
Is that in this form, Alan, the MSDTV?
Nope, that's the default budget, so they are on your MS 737 towards the back, you'll see
Page 7.
individual warrant, thank you, Donna, individual and special warrant articles. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 being proposed right now that have a monetary value attached to them. To fund the ambulance operations, that comes out of the special revenue funds, so that it has essentially no tax impact. That figure may be adjusted. It was a carry forward from last year, and we're just waiting on the final cost analysis to figure out how much it is going to cost to run both ambulances that we now have in our possession. Road reconstruction and paving, that was the what used to be split into the operating budget and warrant article, what we kind of used that as a number to back into after we funded the other capital reserve funds, being the fire vehicle and SCBA capital reserve fund. the Highway Truck Capital Reserve Fund, the Police Technology Expendable Trust Fund, the Town Building Maintenance Expendable Trust Fund, and the Invasive Species Expendable Trust Fund. The Board of Selectmen deliberated for quite a while on narrowing those figures down to be able to fund a little bit to each of these while adding a little bit more towards the road reconstruction, since that was the heaviest hit in 2024.
And I think we reviewed the last meeting, there's 3 specific projects that dollar amount comes exactly to.
Yeah, that 285 is a quote on 3 roads.
Correct.
Can you remind me how the warrant articles work with the 4% tax cap?
It's if they're to be funded or raised by taxation, that all comes into the bottom line. So it's your total of appropriations by your operating budget warrant article plus all your special and other individual warrant articles. It's that lump sum, less your estimated revenues for a net amount to be raised by taxation.
So these would be included in the
Correct.
premium. And that was the reason for keeping them limited or having to do with the math on them instead of putting a
Correct.
desired amount, because it has to stay under that 4%.
Correct.
Do we have a tax cap worksheet?
I don't think I printed one this round.
Did it
but
change? Is it the same as?
It should be the same as the
last
last.
time?
Very similar, if you just wanna look at the numbers, I just noticed on page 12,
Of,
it has, of the,
MS?
MS 737. It breaks down appropriate, budgets, warrants, total appropriations, estimated revenues, and then amount to be raised by taxes. The only piece that this is missing is last year's amount raised by taxes to look at the comparison in terms of the percentages.
Which I can give you that figure if you don't have that. It's $2,896,585.
So, who's playing along?
So if you multiply that by 4%, it's $3,012,448.40, but we round.
The 40 cents is what's gonna hold it up.
You never know.
you could change it to a penny. Right, John?
It's for you, John. So this just. So this represents roughly a 3.82% tax increase.
Correct.
Any other specific questions, items, or steer us off in a different direction?
I don't know if this is appropriate or not, small potatoes, but it is noted that under executive, the newsletter, there will be a warrant article coming in, and I'm struggling with that. How to not have to do a warrant article every year for that. So, it has any input, but it will be coming soon.
I still have concerns about Parks and Rec. The
Okay.
28% increase, I feel is too much.
Yeah,
I think it could be funded via the rec revolving fund.
what could be the percent increase, which is primarily the
Salary,
assistant salary, right?
that additional salary.
So go back to the way it was before, where it came out of the revolving fund.
It was
Yeah.
50/50 before.
So they're trying to move the other 50% of her salary into town budget.
One of the reasons we moved to this was that these are good people, and our community is having trouble retaining good people, and giving people an assured salary helps to retain them.
I don't think anybody would say that they're not good people, but at some point, you know, with a limited budget, you do have to prioritize
Yep.
roads, police, and fire, and unfortunately, you know, recreation, at least I know as a homeowner, you know, that's one of the first things to go is vacations and whatnot, so. It's just open for consideration.
In the interest of-
Recreation is not vacations. It's needed childcare and it's programs that support residents across the lifespan.
I don't think that's what
Taxpayer
Mike's
assisted.
suggesting, or myself, for that matter.
In the interest of consistency, is there any other position in town that basically needs to raise their own salary?
Clerk?
Well,
A
Right.
portion
Well,
of it.
they
It's
get,
a- yeah,
they
it's an
get
elected.
fees.
they get these, but
Yeah.
Yes.
It's an elected
I-
position.
Trying to think of what else
I
might be.
think it should be consistent, I think it should be professionalized. My opinion would be to put it in the operating budget.
I mean, all of the rec department's other programs that are specifically fee-based and run, all of those positions, so for the summer program, the after-school program, Emma's position, I mean, those are all funded through rec revolving. For the past few years, it's been a discussion, I wasn't in the BOS at the time when it first came to the BOS, but we couldn't really work it in, but it was important because that position is not directly funded by those programs. Her position has evolved, and so that's why we're trying to build it in. I get it, the percentage increase.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
But again, I guess it's a difference of opinion between the BOS and a couple of budget committee members, so I just don't know how it's best to move forward other than continuing to.
Yep.
We can go back and forth, but I think
Yeah.
that's why we've had 3 looks at it, and we've, as a board of selectmen, decided to.
Yeah.
And so I would say, speaking as a woman, a working woman, it's an economic necessity to have childcare as well.
So I agree with Jeff, right? I think that, for one thing, people look at that for a 28% increase for rec, that's not gonna go over well. That's one thing. But the other thing is that having her salary split that way has been done for a few years now, and she's never not gotten her salary. Even during COVID, when programs were down and stuff, she still got her salary. And she is still, although her responsibilities have changed, she's still supporting programs. And the difference for me is that there's no other department that is generating that level of revenue, right? So that's the
Do a lot
difference
of
between.
business.
Right.
It's a real
It's
economic.
apples and oranges to me.
But the number of
with-
positions that are
Between
already being.
One at a
departments.
time, guys.
Sorry, go ahead, Jeff.
I was just mentioning it was apples and oranges to me. It still stands out to me that the merit compensation pool got nixed a couple of years ago. And every department came in, people's input was that the town was not able to retain employees, people were leaving, things of that nature. That was nixed. We were told by the Board of Selectmen that everybody got their raises, everybody got everything else, it's not a big deal. And here we are 2 years later with the same type of talk.
That didn't happen 2 years ago, though. That was last year.
Last year. Feels like 2 years.
Well, it was not even 2 years, it was 9 months ago.
Here we
And-
are again saying we can't retain town employees because we're not paying people and stuff like that.
But if I could explain, so what we did in 2023, we did give a lot of the staff raises.
Yep.
2022 through 2023, and then last year, as part of the default budget, I mean, we had to cut a lot, and that
I
was
watched
one-
it. I watched
yeah.
all the videos
And it
of
was
the-
painful to
the
cut, and
work
it
you had
wasn't
to do.
easy for us to do.
No.
In hindsight, if we knew that we weren't gonna be fully staffed in police year-round, throughout the end of the year, at the time, it was going to be fully staffed as of June, I think was our thought. But that didn't end up happening, and then the fire department as well.
I'm just saying, if there are concerns through anybody else on the board about other line items, that's exactly where I'd point to, would be that.
Tim, was there any discussion about now if the salary is coming out, that the revolving funds be used to decrease the amount that someone would have to pay for some of the programs like the after-school care? Has that been discussed? Because that would be helpful then, if they didn't have to, pay as much, maybe the pay got cut a little bit.
I know she's looking at the after-school program. I don't know if she's specifically looking at the fees, but.
And I know something that's been discussed in other scenarios is that, without that burden and rec revolving, rec would be able to take on projects such as, you know, paying for the gym floor. That wouldn't have been a warrant article, that could have come out of rec revolving fund without that salary pressure there and having, it's the true cost of running the department that we haven't been paying. So I understand that it looks like on paper a significant increase, but it's actually the true cost of the work that's happening that the town, I mean, has been paying for, because rec revolving fund is town money, but hasn't been paying, you know, equitably out of operating funds as it does for all of its other staff and every other department.
I had a question. Ellen, do you know exactly what's in that fund right now?
I don't have the balance, I didn't come prepared with that, I can,
Wasn't it like 200 something at the end of
Ballparky?
last
I
year?
thought we were
I wanna
pushing.
say it's around 300,000.
I thought we were pushing 3, and from my understanding, it's been up there for quite some time.
Well, I mean, it's constantly moving, there's money in and out.
Well, yeah, it's money in, money out, but
But it's not draining down to zero.
It's
no,
almost
I
100%
don't recall
turnover.
ever seeing it at a drastically low amount, I guess is what I'm getting at.
I mean, I think it's a real economic engine here, honestly. And what we were talking about earlier in the capital improvement plan also is that statistics for New Hampshire in general aren't applying to our town specifically. In fact, our town is getting younger than the rest of New Hampshire. And I think, you know, our sort of common sense feeling is, oh, it's all getting so old, it's all getting so old. But if you look at evidence-based census and employment security figures from New Hampshire, our town is reversing that right now. We have more children than we have people over 65. And I think acknowledging that and looking at the actual statistics will show that's important. I also think that recreation provides services that we cannot afford, such as social services for senior people. You know, a broad range, but mostly it's the economic engine of having families be able to work.
And I think to your point about the after-school program, I don't know which is more important for the program right now or the community as far as reducing the cost of the program or increasing access. Because right now, there's like
yeah.
60 families on the wait
There's a
list.
huge waiting
See,
list.
now that,
Yeah.
but that's what I'm looking for, is you've got this money now in the revolving, how could that be used then to benefit the town? So, like, getting access for more people.
Right.
Right, so then I feel like the switch in the salary justification isn't the right word, but it feels better, I don't know how
It
better.
does make more sense when, to me.
Now, what I'm not
when you
saying
put
is
it
I'm
all
not saying
together.
that she's got a solution in place to take $35,000.
No,
from the
I hear
revolving
you,
fund to
I hear
increase
you,
access to
it would just be
65.
nice to hear something
Right,
like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it seems like in one fell swoop, that percentage increase, it stands out, but
Right.
it's because I think we've been behind the 8 ball. And I really wonder in the future about hiring somebody with that sort of situation. And I totally appreciate what you said, Dawn, about that revolving fund never, you know, not being able to pay her salary, but you know, the economy has been a wild and wacky thing, and the world has been a wild and wacky thing, and I would feel more comfortable assuring people that they would get their pay.
Yeah, I just want to take exception to one thing that you just said about behind the 8 ball with her salary. And I don't think that's true, because she's gotten her salary, it's just the source.
The source of it, I'm sorry, I
Where it's
misspoke,
coming
you're
from.
right.
We
I-
haven't
I
been behind the
misspoke.
8 ball on salary.
Yep, no, I apologize.
I should have done my homework a little more. I didn't get a chance to view updates. I thought I might have seen some cuts of some lines moved, but it remained. I didn't do that, so. It looks like it's at 150K right now. I'd be interested to know the last time that was under 200,000 in that fund. I think that's a fair question to ask, or something for everybody in the room to think about.
Well, it's constantly revolving though, right? I mean, that's the number, they have so many kids and people involved in these, that it's the number that.
Yeah, but I guess the question is there a baseline, right? Is it like it's always at $100 but then it goes up to 300, comes back to 100, goes up to 400, comes back to 100. Is there that base, or is it always going zero up, zero up, zero up?
Yep.
That's, I think, a question.
And how far would we go back at looking at that? 10
I mean,
years?
my general sense is it would be hard to kind of depict it in the way you're describing, because the nature of the expenses is that they come throughout the year, you know, as does the revenue, right? So there's never like a moment in time where it's zero, you know, but it's always going up and down because of the nature of the revenue and the expenses within the fund.
Like she's
It would be interesting to me to see, say, I don't know, 5-10 years, what they were end of year, so to see the bottom, the absolute bottom, and how that fluctuates.
That should be reported in the town
And the
report.
inflation situation has gone on over the last 5 and 10 years, so even if you had a concrete number, it really wouldn't tell you anything. It's like we all bought our houses for 30,000 something, but we could all sell them now for $500,000, you know? Well,
You could do a percentage and average that out over a course of time.
We could, but I'm curious, do we think this information is gonna change anybody's opinion on whether this number feels too high for folks or not? The position that I have in the, budget that I pulled together to propose has that number meeting in the middle. I know it's a number that is, quite high relative to every other department. But it's also, I think, a number that people feel fairly strongly in both directions. So I'm wondering if I could get a sense of the board, what a compromise of, instead of a 50-50 split, a 75-25 split for this year with a reevaluation next year, as to how that might go forward from the board. Do folks think that helps to address the concerns they have, or are the concerns still there?
Yeah, I think I think compromise is a neat thing to talk about, because it seems like our board is somewhat split. It might not be 100% 50-50, but I think it would be worth looking at for sure. Can I just say one more thing on this though? Like, I never understood why the rec department was so excited to move this into the proposed budget, because if we end up in a default budget, that funding isn't gonna be there, and then it's gonna come out of revolving anyway. If they leave it in revolving, the money is under their control. It's a more secure salary if half of that comes out of revolving. So this move to the default doesn't make sense on either side for me, because I feel like their salary it's in their control if it comes to the proposed. It's in their control if it stays in default. It's their money, they control that. And then, you know, and then it's not this big concern. I would think you'd wanna have the hands on the wheel. And then from the Board of Selectmen perspective, then you have that $34,000 roughly that is available for merit increases. That we're saying that we have such a hard time staffing our other departments, then we could take that 34,000 and then roll that into police and fire. Library, you know, there's a lot of other departments. I mean, the town clerk for one, I hope we never have to hear another testimony like that as budget committee. So there are a lot of other factors that, you know, this position has always been funded. In a default, it would be more securely funded. And as a town, for the rest of our employees, I feel like that money could be distributed. It makes more sense from both sides to me.
I mean, I don't want to speak for Courtney, but I've asked her similar questions along these lines, and I think for the department, what I imagine her response would be from similar conversations is that it's about feeling that there's a commitment to the staff, and it's also about what they feel the proper use of the funds is. If they feel that the proper use of rec revolving is to use that money towards programs, and she is not a direct program service staff person anymore, which is why they feel that it would be more appropriate for her salary to be funded out out of the operating fund. I'm very open, I think, Owen, to a compromise. My question, I guess, for you is not so much about the dollar amount, it's about the commitment behind, or the value system behind the dollar amount. Is there a commitment? I mean, who knows what the future holds or who's on the
We
committee,
can make a
but
one-year commitment when we make a
is there a commitment
recommendation.
to continue
That's
to
about what we
discuss and
got.
address this in the future?
I would
And-
be
That'd
very
be up to the
surprised if
board.
Courtney let this one disappear in the future. But I would say my intention with this would be potentially to continue going forward in this direction if it seems favorable, if it seems to be working, and if it is beneficial for the staff, if it made a big difference for them. If it didn't, if we're not seeing a substantial difference, then maybe that this is the right split. But again, my thought was in a year where everything is tight, because we're going from a default to a 4% cap, is that the best year to make the decision to do this transfer in its entirety? Even if you want to make that entire switch, is this the most appropriate year to be doing it? So that was more my thought on the compromise. Personally, I think it makes more sense that that person who is providing general service type services to the community would be getting paid out of the general fund. I understand that component. However, to me, I think it's too substantial a jump in a single year for a single department. But I think this is an incremental chance, and it also gives an ability to evaluate without over stressing, I think. And to Mike's point, if half of that additional 35 is put back into the system, that's still 17, 18 going towards other things, and I think that's important, which is one of the things I was looking at in mind. But Tim, you had tried to speak up, I think right in the beginning, you were gonna ask me a question.
Well, I mean, we could move it as the Board of Selectmen, if it's not zeroed out, we could move it around. So for example, if it's halfway through the year and we feel that we could fund it through something else, because there's an overage or a shortage someplace. and we-
Yeah, you could move it as part of a public meeting, right? Or whatever.
No, they can
No.
move it.
They can move it.
They got the bottom line. They can move
Yep.
anything, they can push it around.
So I guess my point is, you could definitely
I'm not saying
recommend
a meeting, sorry, I'm saying at one of your meetings, you can do that action, right? It has to be done in an open public setting, or can it?
Yeah, it can be done at a regular Board of Selectmen meeting. Line
That's
item
what I'm
transfers,
saying.
is that what you're talking about? Yes.
Yeah, sorry, that's what I meant by a public meeting,
Yeah.
not a meeting with the entire public.
Yeah.
I misspoke on that. But my thought is to,
So what would you do with the other $17,000? Is there another, I guess, department or line item that you guys would see it allocated, or you just want to reduce the budget by $17,000?
this was one of the big things I was
I'd like
kind
to see
of
both.
wanting to ask. No, sorry, I'll finish up here in a second, but this was one of the things actually I'm looking for. I think one of the large disservices we're doing as part of this budget, or one of the things that, disservice isn't the right word, one of the areas we struggle to come up with a substantial funding for is routine O&M of our roads. That's not recognized anywhere in this budget. The warrants cover 3 major upgrades to roads, but there is no maintenance to roads. Short-term maintenance things that are fairly cheap, things like simple shim coats or crack sealing or pothole repairs, very basic things like that really go a long way to increasing longevity in roads and at a very small cost. The analogy is always, you don't just let your house fall apart and then build a whole new one. You put a new roof on, you paint the outside, you replace your windows, things like that. That's what these types of maintenance activities on roads are for, and we end up getting ourselves in very expensive situations where all we're doing is major replacements, not O&M. So I'd like to see a number go back into the budget for that. And I actually went through and found about a dozen different areas within the budget. I thought we could find anywhere in the order of 2,000 to 5,000. The biggest one was rec, it was 17. And I managed to call to a point of roughly 75,000, I think, that we can put into that item. It's pretty aggressive. I'm not even sure I'm 100% comfortable with all of the different alternatives and ideas that I've looked at, but I thought being, and this is sort of why I wanted to get a overall feeling from different folks, was what are the primary things that you're most concerned with in this budget?
Well, to the actual windows and roofs, where, Tim, is the conversation right now around the maintenance items that Alan Trant put together?
Well, we're going into the first quarter of this year, still completing the ones we planned to complete last year. And then it's just a matter of sitting down with him at some point in the quarter and figuring out where we're gonna be with the next projects and what the scope of that's gonna be, and then who's gonna do them.
And,
And the
I mean,
cost.
where do you feel that, how does this budget land for you in terms of allocating expenses towards some of those needs?
Well,
It's gonna be based on the expendable trust fund, the building maintenance expendable trust funds.
which is, this would, with the warrant article we have in here, would bring it up over $100,000.
So there, is it unlikely, in your opinion, we'd spend $100,000 in a year on the buildings?
But I don't think we would plan to allocate that, because
Absolutely.
Yeah,
I
so
mean,
I guess that's sort of my idea. There is ample funding, in your opinion, to.
No.
no, because you want to keep a
I'm
portion
not
of that
saying-
for
Ba-
emergencies.
Based on the plan of the 1 to 3 and the 3 to 5 year that Alan had proposed to the Board of Selectmen, it was $260,000+.
In total, right?
But hasn't some of that been done?
Some of it has been done, but that was just identifying, immediate needs.
But to get to that number, we have another 4 to 5 years to continue to add to those
Correct.
funds. My question, I guess, is, and Jill, sorry, I think I
Nope.
cut you off on
Go
this,
ahead.
but are we on track still to hit those numbers and figures? Do we have an ability with the funding that is in place, you think, plus additional funds over the next 4 to 5 years to get to that 282 number or whatever that is?
Any progress is progress.
Yeah, but I'm
It's
saying,
gonna
what's
be a
the
revolving
5 year?
door, because keep in mind, there's gonna be new things that are gonna pop up. That's the whole point of the position.
Well aware, but you still have to draw a line in the sand somewhere and
I
evaluate.
think it would run us short. We'd still run short. It depends on how much we're able to allocate in the warrant article next year, and then what comes up that we're not aware of.
So potentially out of the 75K that went towards roads, is there value in maybe putting some of that instead of 75 all towards roads, a 50-25, or I'm throwing numbers out just for argument, but is there some sort of additional that would be making sense that might be needed in this next upcoming year to make sure that we're still achieving that 282 milestone? Just to address the major issues, I understand, but has that been evaluated? We have a 5-year plan. Do we have an ability to hit it?
I don't think we can even answer that question.
No.
Because we don't have a cost breakdown per item, and then we're still waiting for Mr. Trant on, okay, this is top priority, has to be done in 2025, so that we can say, okay, the $30,000 project's gonna have to wait until 2027, so that we can complete these two $15,000 projects this year. That's the type of breakdown we don't have, so I think it's hard to say, yeah, we can definitely hit that.
I mean, we have an awfully specific number. He must have.
Well, that's the total of the cost of,
Yes, but you don't come up with 282 without having all the line items.
He had estimates on that.
he did.
Yeah, he did a
No,
whole
I'm not-
report, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not saying that we don't have to cost it, but as far as what can be done when,
Yeah.
that's what we're waiting for, and what's the priority for this year, next year, and the year after.
Okay.
But I think
He's coming in to meet with the board Monday, so
Yeah.
unfortunately, the update is gonna come after it's pertinent to this conversation.
Yeah.
And not including the money that we actually need to pay Mr. Trant to do the work,
Correct.
Right,
right?
or somebody else. It
Just for
doesn't
the
have-
sake of
yeah.
putting that out there.
Yeah.
So Owen, I haven't seen anything that's assessed what it is we need for the highway department to maintain the roads.
There isn't a plan.
Okay, so it's hard for me to say that's more justified than the maintenance of the buildings, which I've heard a lot of and I've seen a lot of. So in my opinion, I'm thinking the money needs to go toward the maintenance of the buildings. Again, I just don't know anything
It used to be a
about the
couple
highway.
$100,000 that was in the shim and seal coat line, I believe, $200,000 or $150,000, it used to be in that line item, and then that's what got moved to the warrant article.
Okay, all
Last year that then failed.
Yeah.
right.
So
Okay,
my
that
thought
helps.
is trying to rebuild that back to where it was.
Got
Now, there
that.
is not actually a plan for the town on what should be spent per year on different roads and how to maintain infrastructure. That is something you can pay engineers to come in and do, and they can develop a full detailed plan for you. But like everything else, you gotta come up with the dollars and cents first, and that isn't
Right.
something that's been able to have happened, especially on the default budget. It's actually something I was working with a different consultant on trying to get them in here to see if that could happen, but it didn't end ended up working last year with the default. I still think that's something that needs to be done.
There's the culverts too.
There's also still the
Yeah.
health.
Yeah, that's a big chunk, right? And we don't know how much.
And again, things like roadway maintenance funds can go towards things like culverts or anything like that, things that impact the road in and of itself. So that is sort of my thought process behind that, but to your point, we have significant infrastructure, capital infrastructure. We have roads are some of our biggest and buildings are our other one, right? As a town, what we own, those are probably the most expensive things we have. And it makes sense that those are the things that are gonna need maintenance funds. Or we need to be budgeting more in the future for full replacements when everything fails, as opposed to maintenance.
The old fire station.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
things like that, exactly, it's a perfect example of, now we're looking at, can we even salvage it anymore, because it's leaking all over the place, who knows?
Yeah, tear that down.
Yeah, I'd be interested in seeing your numbers where you thought, because
Yeah.
I think having a little more for buildings and or roads.
So
that's a
I
great
can, I can run through, I sort of broke it out by, where I would make the reductions based on different line items that I thought were appropriate, however, obviously, it's bottom line. So obviously, things can move as need be, but we always know that that's what it is. We need to at least have, I believe, based on the discussions we had, and absolutely let me know, but we're supposed to be putting forward roughly what we believe we will be spending in each one of these different, at least major categories, because that's how the information is represented to the public and that's what they're voting on. So even if the bottom line numbers are the same, if the major category, subcategory numbers change, I think that's sort of the level of reporting we need to have to the public. So in my mind, that's sort of how I broke it down, just to give some framework. But if I go through, I can just give an accounting of the different areas I thought we might have some room. Number one, sorry, Tim, it's selectman salary. I think that's one of the easiest ones. So I would take 10,000 out of selectman salary, drop it to 5,000. That puts it from 2,500 last year to 5,000 this year. That's still an increase.
Last year.
It was 0 last year because of default, right? Apologies. It was supposed to be 2,500. It was 0 last year, 5,000. Doesn't get them back to where they used to be, but I think it's an incremental step. A lot of what I tried to do in this was incremental steps. So there's 10,000,
So I'm sorry, so that would give the selectman's salary to be
5,000.
1,000 per.
1,000 per, yeah. So there's 10,000 in executive.
Because he's only in
Town clerk, I didn't see anything available. Elections, I didn't see anything available. Finance, I didn't see anything. Maybe instead of just repeatedly saying that, I'll get to where I actually saw things. Planning board totals, that was next, one of the next ones.
What page, John?
I'm on a spreadsheet.
100,
So I'm not on a
around
page.
there.
Line 100?
So it's on page 4?
So I don't have the line
That's
items in
page
the
four.
spreadsheet
Page
the
four.
same way.
That way
But,
we can all.
okay, so let me get everybody on the same page here, make sure I'm on the same page. Planning board totals, line 100. Okay, so about 20 on. That one, the only thing I looked at in the planning board is we have revenue placeholders of $500 built into our budget. I don't see a need for revenue placeholders for $500. A dollar does the exact same thing. It's a cash flow issue. There is no real reason for that to have anything. So I took 1,500 minus $3. So
What's the line number called? Because we might be on different numbers.
I don't see it.
Being like 92? Advertising or?
I think it's the plug figure, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they're
If you
called
look to the
plug
right,
figure in
there's
the notes.
offsetting revenue all
So
the way
we
to the
take
right.
this out because the applicant pays it all anyway.
Yes, that's my thought. So that finds us another 1,500 roughly, 1,497.
But then we have to take it off the revenue side
Yeah,
as well.
you can't count the revenue without the.
We count that 500 on the revenue side?
That, yeah, that's what I was trying to say, it's a wash. So whether it's $1 or it's $500, it's a wash.
Okay, ignore that then, 1,500, put that back on the list.
So do you,
Going back to Board of Selectmen.
oh, and as you're going through this, do you want to go through all of yours, and then if we have ideas
Yeah,
of
should we go
those
page by page,
other
maybe?
sections?
That way we don't have to
Raise
jump.
those,
Go
or,
page by page, and then
That makes
my
sense.
suggestion would be page by page, and then if anybody else has lines that we want to bring up. Charlotte mentioned the newsletter, and that kind of got cut off pretty quick, so
Yeah.
it's worth a discussion.
Thanks.
however you want to do it, Owen.
Yep, since I'm halfway through this thought, maybe I'll just summarize it, finish up where I am, and then we can go back page by page. So the other big items I hit, the only ones of, I think, any real substance is I went after electric, a little bit of heat for some of the buildings that appeared to be overrun to me, and then the gasoline charges. I reduced those pretty substantially. Right now, the industry's forecasting gas pricing not to be going up substantially anytime in the near future. We're looking at 2 to 3 year futures right now. The gas prices aren't increasing substantially. The US markets are opening up quite a bit right now. So I think that the inflated prices we had from when gas went crazy about a year to 2 years ago are still partially reflected in this. So there was a few areas I found in there that we could cheat a bit, and it actually ended up bringing totals, say, out of police of $4,000, and that's just the gas line. Fire department, $5,000, that's just the gas line. And the new proposals I have are still at least 20 to 30% below the actual spent on the 2024s, which is more than enough, because these were November
Do
numbers.
we think gasoline use might be affected by, the upcoming road closure? The bridge repair?
Potentially, but I don't know if it would be substantially enough that it
Really
would be something that we could
yeah.
really, I mean, the different departments really, if they're planning their work out appropriately, it shouldn't be too bad.
It's
Luckily,
only
it's,
a month.
yeah, luckily it's a pretty short window. State's doing a pretty, yeah, that's great point, fingers crossed, before I go running my mouth. So those were the big ticket items that I hit. It just happened to hit several different departments to get there. And then obviously the rec. I had another, I think the math I used, which I'm not super confident on, comes up with about $12,000, $13,000, which feels a bit short. So I might need to look at that again.
Will you share it with us?
Yeah, absolutely. But, so, that is sort of my overall vision of what more on this stone can we squeeze to find a little more blood to try to sister up a few of the things I think, or shore up a few of the things I think that we're still a little weak on, and is there anything left? Actually, one of the other things too is I did add a little bit extra, peanuts, but I want to make sure, I added a small increase, 3% to the animal control officer, and, there was one other position I think I found that wasn't included in the merit pool. So I want to make sure, as part of this, if we're going to put this much emphasis on the merit pool, that we don't miss a few folks that aren't included in the merit pool.
Was that like the EMD, the Emergency Management Director?
Yeah.
Because it's the dog officer, the EMD, and then the fire chief that are appointed positions.
Yeah, you're right. I didn't touch the fire chief because I know that one is currently up in the air and being looked at, but you're right, it was the emergency management. And that was it wasn't a big, that one again was pretty small, because that's a pretty small line item. I think it's 4,000 total, and I tossed 3% on it, or something like that. But
Good idea.
just to make sure that we're not, people aren't falling behind, so.
Yeah, that's good.
So, on that.
So just to be clear though,
Yes, to be
the
clear.
budget committee does not have the ability to dictate how wages, and that's the board of selectmen. So I mean, you can increase the,
We could suggest, though.
no, you can definitely, I'm just saying, I think you're getting into some granular detail that I'm not sure how much control, I could be wrong, but I'm just not sure how much control the budget. I mean, you can definitely make those recommendations and make the changes in the line items, and maybe come to a board of selectmen meeting, suggest those changes, but the budget committee can't dictate wages.
Dictate it, but we can recommend it, so
Right.
that when you
Well,
have this next year.
I'm not dictating a wage by changing the budget. I am recommending a change to the budget that the budget committee votes on. Because the budget that goes before the town is not the board of selectmen's budget. It's the budget committee's.
But then we allocate the funds from there.
You allocate the funds as they are represented to the legislature. The legislature approves those funds, and then you are supposed to allocate those funds in the best interest of the legislature. But in my understanding from when he came and spoke to us, if we are giving any sort of information out to the public that is more than just that 5 million bottom line, then that is roughly what we are supposed to be doing. Now, yes, at a Board of Selectmen meeting, which is a public meeting that anybody can go to and can participate in, then yes, those individual line items can change, but that's all part of the process. The Board of Selectmen can't meet in a secret room and decide that $5 million goes to roads and every other department disappears.
No, obviously.
Right, so that's what I'm saying. It's not an unlimited ability for the Board of Selectmen to just change
And I was,
whatever they want.
no, that's not what I was saying. I'm just saying, like, with some of the wages and for certain roles,
Those certain roles are specific line items, not in the merit pool. So that's why I was trying to focus on them, because the merit pool doesn't speak to them.
yeah.
It's a good suggestion, but we'll have to see, right?
I mean, and I guess at the end of the day, would the Board of Selectmen rather see a recommendation, for example, that we'd like to see $75,000 freed up? Or would you like to see us do the work and say, oh, I think we could find, you know, a
I
little
guess
bit here
whichever
and
the
there.
budget committee wants to do, because we have a public hearing in 2.5 weeks to present it to the public. So I guess it would probably be the budget committee making the changes, because we can't
Right.
and present.
Well, there's a reason I think this, MS 737 has a selectmen's, budget and a budget committee's budget
Right.
summarized on it. And the intention is not for those to be identical.
No, and that's what I'm saying, but the public hearing that's going to be here for the budget committee, that you'll be presenting the budget to the public.
Yeah.
There isn't another budget committee meeting, like, we don't, unless we,
It's going to be your recommendations that are put forward.
Right.
so I would say the budget committee should do the work that you want to see changes to speed up the process. If you'd like those changes made, then the committee should deliberate on those changes today, so that the budget that's being presented to the public is your budget that you've created tonight, you've made the judgment, and that's at the public hearing.
Agreed, yeah.
Okay.
It should be the budget committee's budget, because that's what has to be presented.
Right.
It's not the Board of Selectmen's budget that gets presented to the public.
So I wouldn't put it back on the Board of Selectmen to make the changes, I would,
If that's what I said, that's not what I intended.
okay.
So just to clarify the purpose, our goal here tonight is to come out with the budget that we want to present at the public hearing. Correct. Just so that everybody's on the
Because
same board.
what you don't wanna be doing at the public hearing,
No,
is
no,
doing
no.
what you're doing tonight, you'd be presenting it to the public with
Correct.
public comment on
The
it.
public comment and then the vote after is supposed to
Right.
be
So.
based on the public.
So what we can be doing now is going through line by line, as you were doing the things that you chose. And I think it was Jeff that brought up the thing that other people may have suggestions. So just going through the whole thing line by line or page by page and seeing who has what suggestions to make and discussing those as we come along with them. Like we did the first one, I think everybody was in agreement that raising the selectmen to 5,000 rather than all the way to 15,000 was a good idea. I didn't hear any complaint about that, so we could move on to other things from there.
So I'm thinking, yeah, at this point, we go page by page,
Right.
and we'll see if there's any other recommendations. I'll be more explicit on the ones I
And you can
made
put the
when I hit
ones,
those.
and when we come to yours, you can mention them.
And I think we make a vote, hopefully tonight, that can get a majority on what we're gonna be presenting to the public at the public hearing in, is that 2 weeks? Sorry. I should know.
Yes.
2 weeks.
January 14th.
Thank you.
With the caveat that we are still able to make adjustments by a motion after the public hearing, and that's how we've always done it in the past.
Well, yes, with the idea being that the public is supposed to
Yeah,
influence.
the public is here, but, you know, hopefully we can get 90-something or whatever percent of that work done tonight, so that we don't have to go through that.
If you,
Whatever you're presenting to the public, what you're presenting to the public at the public budget hearing has to be the budget that you're putting forward.
You can't make
You shouldn't make changes after the
having
fact,
another
without having another hearing.
Then,
What's
unless
the
my
purpose?
memory's wrong, we've always, a few years I've been here, we've always been able to make adjustments. based
the
on the
public
public hearing,
comments.
because we want to have the public comment.
Right.
And then be able to do that, and then we could turn it back to the select board for it to be finalized. We don't sign off on
Maybe I
it
misunderstood. I thought you said after. the-
Right, I thought so too.
During
I
the
misunderstood as
public-
well.
during
Once the public
the
hearing
night
closes.
of the
Yes,
public
yes,
hearing.
Night of the public
Yeah,
hearing,
yeah,
it's
okay.
it's technically after the hearing.
Yeah, okay, I'm sorry. I misunderstood.
Yeah.
Because it could be continued if you get too late.
So, anything else on page 1?
Yes, so, I just want to back up to what you just said about select board salaries. And I just want to kind of put it just a different view out there, and I do think that the boards do a lot of work, and that there's a lot of time that goes into it, and I think I'm fine if the committee decides that you want to cut that, but I think that we need to be consistent. So if we're looking at what the select board members are getting paid for, you know, the services that they're providing the town, then we should be looking at the school board as well. And they're both, you know, big jobs. The school board is a big job, I get that as well, but let's do it consistently across the board, is my opinion.
Partially agree. I would say that if we feel the school budget is in line with the spending that and there's no need to cut it, I am fine with the school board members getting, number one, their meetings are 4 times as long as ours,
Yeah.
even, but I guess I would just look at it per budget and say, if we're looking to save $70,000, that's an easy one. I don't think anybody on the board of selectmen is saying, really, I'm here because of the money, but.
We have school budget next week, so.
Yeah, I just want to, just, I'm
Yeah.
not asking.
Consistency, I like that idea.
Understand the opinion. Anything
Yeah.
else on page 1?
Let's see here.
Do you want to hear anything else about the newsletter?
Absolutely, it's on page 1.
It's on page 1. This
Okay.
is your big chance.
All right, my big chance. I'm having a terrible time writing a warrant article for this because the question is, do I want someone to have to write a warrant article every year for this? What we need is $12,000, which would be offset by advertising and donation revenue.
To what extent?
Well, my estimate would be $3,500 per year, and that's going, we had pretty low advertising, costs, charges in the past. I mean, I think we could raise them. Yeah, so it would really average out, we had a problem because our printer retired, who was giving us a break. We found a printer who's good, reliable, will do, I think, a much, you know, more complete job, not a better job, but will handle mailing, everything else for us. And, yeah, and it seems to, you know, I'm tossing it out there, there seems to be a lot of hue and cry that people, we'll see how many people really want the print edition, but there was a lot of backlash about,
There is no, there is no computer edition at this point.
there's nothing. at
There's
this point.
nothing.
Right.
No print, no computer.
Right. I really feel that a strictly computer edition is what we could look at. I mean, I know that there are people who want the print edition, but the computer edition, there are very few people on earth who don't have a computer of some sort now. It's kind of like having a phone. You have it. Even if you have it on your phone, you have it. And my feeling is that I don't know what the cost would be. There's still a cost involved in putting forward a purely computer but we're looking at all or nothing. I loved getting the print piece. I liked doing that, but I also know how to use my computer.
I do not disagree with you. I think this was discussed actually at length last year, and I, myself, I think proposed, to my regret, a decrease in the funding, and it didn't get us through. And we lost our printer as well, so it was just kind of everything coming together. The present editor did not wish to continue, unless it was a print newsletter as well.
Couldn't we find a new editor?
We can jump on board.
Accepting applications.
I was not volunteering.
Yeah, as you know, volunteers are, hard to come by. And I don't know the temperature of the town. I know what people say to me, but of course I'd be hearing from the people who say, oh, I really want the print. I mean, I agree with you. I find it hard to believe that there are people who couldn't get online, but then there are issues with distributing that and sending that directly and maintaining a mailing list. All of these can be solved, however, I have been asked to put a warrant article in. And
I think it would be a good way to gauge the
see,
temperature.
Yeah, exactly.
exactly.
That
And
was-
And if it's an
then I'd be
overwhelming-
happy to go on with volunteers to do an online
Yeah.
version only. But I think this will take the temperature.
I think a
Yeah.
warrant article is the best way to
Yeah.
take the temperature, I fully agree. If it gets pretty good support, then I think that's the answer.
Yeah.
And then next year, we're looking to find $12,000 for a newsletter, because that seems to be
What people want.
what people want, and it's a standard,
Yep.
recurrence, so it should be in an operating budget.
But I do think communication is terribly important, so I'm very committed to either way, that it not be an all or nothing the way it has been for the last months, that we get something going again, but anyway,
Agreed.
that's my story and I'm sticking to it.
I was looking at line 20, the Lake Host program. I'm not questioning at all the importance of it, but if we're trying to meet, take care of the buildings and fix roads and provide wage increases in an inflationary cycle, maybe we should look at that as well. It was 0 in 2024. I know they get a lot of donations, and I
It
know
was
there's
a
a lot
separate
of.
warrant article, so we just moved it from a separate warrant article back into the operating budget. Because, and that was done as we were shifting stuff back and forth.
And the support for that warrant article has been, so when you're thinking about the newsletter, for
Right.
example,
Yeah.
the voters have voted for, I think it's been 7 years, 6
Overwhelmingly,
years that that's been on.
And it was 10,000,
Longer than
wasn't
that,
it?
okay.
Wasn't it more than that?
Yeah.
Well, that's probably to fund the invasive species
Oh,
control
right.
fund,
Yeah.
but this is the Lake Coast program, this is a preventative maintenance, it's checking the boats before they enter the water.
Would there be any support on the board for maybe cutting that in half?
I don't think I would support that because of the warrant support it's seen. I think that's the closest thing we can get to.
And the cost of the program.
confirmation of
Of the voters.
the voters. So for my
Desires, I
interest, I
know.
would say if 5,000 was last year's warrant, and I believe that one was actually one of the more lopsided for numbers, if I'm trying to remember correctly.
I
But
could pull up the ballot and let you know for sure.
either way,
Work with numbers.
it's worked, it's been supported for numerous years in a row, so I would say there's definitely some interest in it. So I would be more comfortable leaving it at the whole value.
Yeah.
And I think that
I understand why you looked at it, but I think the voters want it.
Yeah, it's actually been like over 10 years.
It's been that long, it's been.
Yeah, because
Oh, has
Tom
it?
Duffy and I are the ones that first put it forward.
All right, moving on.
Anything else, page 1?
Postage. Just kidding.
Not doing that again, thank you. Page 2. Thank you for having less elections this year, everybody. Something we can't control, but helps tremendously. Appreciate that. Which means next year will be a pain, but here we are. Anything?
So,
page
yeah,
2?
question on the tax collector salary, is that not an elected position? Line item 44,
It is an elected position.
but we can write in a 3% cost of living? I'm glad to
that's-
see it there.
That's what she has requested, so your elected officials, if they are part of the operating budget, the increases can be approved as a whole in the operating budget, or they can be out there as individual warrant articles. So it would be at the discretion of,
Okay. So the tax collector is 3% cost of living. What about bookkeeper?
the bookkeeper is our Betsy, our finance person.
Okay,
So that is a employee position.
that would be the difference, okay. What about, what's the assistant tax collector? Is she on here?
I think it might just come under the tax collector salary because she only fills in when Tracy's not here.
Okay. So that would be split between the two of them, and that 3%? They would
Correct.
be, okay.
Um,
They would
I
both
don't
get
think
3%?
so. It's not paid at the same rate that I'm aware of. Just because the tax collector is a certified tax collector, the assistant can fill in and collect the tax payments and. So I think it comes out of that same line item. I don't think there's a separate one for her, but it's just a matter of, Emma, our current deputy tax collector or assistant tax collector. I think she filled in for Tracy maybe once or twice last year. So it's not a consistent
Okay.
position.
Is that rate negotiated, her fill-in rate, or is that,
I don't know, to be honest with you.
just curious where it comes from?
Yeah.
Because that would answer the COLA question.
I can find out.
Worth checking, I think, purely for the concept of making sure that if we're trying to give everybody raises, it's trying to give everybody raises.
Agree.
So, I have a question on, like, so, for tax collector, it says 3% COLA, right? And then for treasurer, is it correct that that's a 3.4%?
The request is in there. She's requesting consideration, but there hasn't been any increase. It's still 5,000. It's been 5,000 consistently for several years. So it didn't actually push forward beyond the Board of Selectmen review.
Okay. Because, again, I was just looking at it from a consistency perspective.
Agreed, if we're doing it, it should be
Yeah,
consistent.
exactly.
Yep. Anything else on 2? Moving on to 3.
The 20,000 for the Avatar is, it's because they're doing a full reassessment this year?
Correct. That's to fund the balance of the 100,000 needed to do the revaluation.
And that's because the warrant article failed.
Correct.
Anything else on 3? Page 4?
You had something on page 4, right?
Did, but I went against it because the offsetting revenue, which is on this and not on mine, I forgot about.
All right.
Makes way more sense on this sheet. It's highlighted all nice and bold.
So the planning board dues and conferences is, I'm not sure if I'm reading your form right, the budget sheet here, but was it that the 66 was requested, but you, Board of Selectmen said no?
To the annual dues to be an SRPC voting member, correct.
Got it.
So the $110 pretty much covers the, I think it's the conference at Office of Energy and Planning.
Yeah, that's
I think
fine.
that covered 2.
I was going after the 69.
Okay, gotcha.
Anything else on page 4? Page 5? So this one I did have a bunch, so I'll try to highlight these a little more specifically. But the lines I was looking at, should I get it up on my sheet in front of me too, so I'm not saying it wrong? Town Hall Electric. That's down to,
Line 120?
120?
It's 120.
yeah, that's 1,500 now.
1,500?
Yeah, I dropped it to 1,000. Actuals have been under 500. The community center electric, which is 125, reduced to, what did I reduce that to? 20,000?
20,000 makes sense?
20,000 because it was 17. Or
What was 9?
I have an updated number now as of 12/20, which I didn't have on this sheet. That's 19. So 20,000 is pretty tight. So that might not be
Yeah.
as warranted anymore. So
21.5?
probably,
No, 20,
25.
25.
Any biters?
I think 20,500. Not crazy. So we say 500.
and again, all of these are only really valid if we find another true line item to change from a 0 to something of significance. To Tim's earlier point on switching items, it's only really if we're changing a 0 that it has a ton of leg. Then the electric at the recycling center and SS, what's SS? I should know that.
Smoke Street Pit.
Oh, sure. That. Reduce those not substantially, a couple $100 to 1,000 and 4,000.
1,000.
I mean, that's almost level.
Wait, go through those again, please, Owen.
Yep.
Line 128.
128 and 129. 128 reduced from 1,450 to 1,000, and then recycling. Again, these are suggestions, but the way I would put it in front of the boards and the elected would just be a reduction to the bottom line of 5,100, which was my original recommendation for the entirety of that. I was just trying to point out for everybody's discussion purposes, and thinking about if these actually are potentially achievable and make any sense.
My thought would be if we were gonna change them, we should change the lines. I mean, I know the bottom line's all that's really matters, but changing individual lines would probably make the most sense.
Well, yeah, wouldn't that be the purpose, because she's got the
Yeah.
budget committee column here,
Yep,
so we would be reflecting those changes on a line by line, right?
Yep.
agreed.
Yeah.
On line 133,
So just,
oh,
sorry for one
I'm
second.
sorry.
So, the things that we've already talked about, like, when we're talking about these electric right now, are we agreeing to these right now, and
No.
the spreadsheet's being updated, or we're gonna come back to them?
I think we should come back to them. I think we
I'm
should.
just entering them in for discussion purposes, but
Yeah, there's no
Just to keep
votes,
track
there's
of
nothing formal. I think at this point, we're trying to figure out what that total number is, where we might be able to put different things, and then what everybody's comfortable with. I think that we circle back and make sure that the numbers make sense. And then I think the other number is highway heat, which is 134. Which has now since increased from what it was before, so.
Library
never
heat's a
mind.
good bit underneath, year to date. Everybody
Oh,
feels
did I
comfortable.
read the wrong one? Yep, I did.
135, library heat's almost $1,000 under,
That's, I had dropped that to 2,000.
2,000.
yes, to 4,000.
So library heat down to 2,000?
Yeah, I would say 500. That would free up. What's HS heat?
Historical Society, the Dame Building, Dame School.
there any
They're
room
not,
in
they're
there?
not in there that often
Yeah.
throughout the winter
What if
months.
we were to
I'm
decrease
surprised it's
that
that
to?
much, because it's one day a week and there's no.
It takes a lot to heat up a whole cold building,
Yeah.
but they must not really be using the heat very much
No.
if that's the.
What if we were to reduce that to, say, 600, that would
That's
free
what
up
I was,
400?
that's what I was gonna say, 600.
Okay. Look at that. Okay, anything else? That was all I had for recommendations to that. Anything else on?
I mean, if you wanted to keep going with the heat, recycling heat, it was 718 year-to-date, and budget request was for 1,500, that's almost double what they used up to 1220. Line 138, could we set
catch.
that at 1,000 comfortably?
Yes.
As long as we continue to burn waste oil, yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Keep it coming.
Keep it coming, folks, keep your taxes low, burn oil. Mr.
That probably gets pretty similar to the number I had, because I ended up backing off of, the new fire station number. Anything else on 5?
I just have a quick question about line 133. We're not heating the old fire
We are, we are heating the old fire station. The current tenants there have agreed as part of their rental agreement that because we're heating it for their purpose, they're paying the cost for the fuel.
So we're just paying for electric.
Correct.
Wouldn't that be offsetting revenue again?
Are they paying the bill directly?
Oh, they're
We
paying the bill?
request the bill from them and we pay it directly, yes.
Oh, we,
The school.
No, this is the fire station.
This is the old fire station.
Oh, sorry, I'm thinking of the building next door, building next door, sorry.
But it should be
It
offset.
could be offsetting revenue, yes. Yeah. I mean, we can put a plug figure in there, but then we'll just have to adjust the revenue side.
But are they paying?
But
the
it's
bill
only for as long as the tenant is there. Correct.
But is that, are they paying the bill directly, or?
No,
is the
because it's
town?
actually, it's part of, the town building, so we're getting the discounted rate.
So the money comes back to us.
Correct.
Okay.
Anything else on 5? 6? PD, this falls into, yes, 162.
Well,
Gasoline.
20,
I think I dropped that to 19,000 was my
19.
recommendation. Pretty tight, so maybe 20,000 makes more sense.
20, yeah, it would still free up a good bit.
2,400.
do they have an extra car now? They had last year?
No,
Yeah, I
same
mean,
amount of cruisers.
we still have 1 month of invoices to come
Yeah.
through.
That aren't reflected of others.
Correct. This is only through 12/23. We don't have the credit card or the WEX statement. But primarily, they're fueling up over at the Smoke Street pit, so.
So it'd be already accounted for, but even with that, say another month isn't gonna be likely $2,000, which gets us roughly to that 20,000 number. That's still pretty tight, though. Well, we can look at it for now and then adjust other numbers as needed too.
What's this, service, line 159, PD service contracts?
I do believe that is for their. I don't know if I have the old notes in here or not. It's for something very specific.
I don't want to make an assumption because it says contract that it's something we can't change.
Service.
So there's not uniform, and it's not software, because that's.
So why have the service contracts gone up so much?
Is it like on the equipment or
Inflation.
electronics or?
Oh, did she
Well,
talk
the-
about, is this the computers in the cars?
I was thinking it was the MDTs, thank you.
I'm trying to remember, I think,
They have to pay a contract to be tied into Rockingham Dispatch and, God, I said it right.
I can't quite remember that conversation.
Okay.
What about, PD telephone? 167. From 910 to 1980.
Yeah.
Is that the cell phones in all the vehicles? That's something?
Is there a big end of year bill that?
That should be, yeah, I don't think there's any town assigned cell phones over there, I think it's just the landlines.
Maybe we could share
And
that?
it would be the cell service for the MDTs. I think that all goes in that same,
So that's why the big increase.
But maybe they're just billed twice a year, I mean,
well, there isn't an increase, it's the same as 2024, it's level funded at 1980.
Just hasn't been spent out.
right.
Line 165?
Equipment maintenance,
Cost?
big number.
Yeah. 4,000.
So wait, were we clear on the PD telephone?
No. We're not clear as to why it's underspent.
Okay.
I'll have to look into it. The 23 year-to-date, I could probably pull that up.
So PD equipment maintenance is quite high, but I wonder if that is end of the year spending when you know your salary lines are low? Because that's what I do with my budgets. If I can't find people, I better have good equipment for the few people I do have to make sure it all works, so I do know
Especially if
sometimes
they're,
that
like
happens.
vests or something are included in that, hopefully she replaced their vests and stuff.
I think that parts of that were included.
Anyway, we're not gonna cut it anymore,
No,
No,
so.
I just wonder why it was so high.
Yeah, I don't remember that conversation, but I'm sure she told us.
yeah, just can't remember. Anything else on 6?
nope.
Looking over to most of, or the rest of fire on 7. There we go. Fire had the same gasoline diesel recommendation on 191, except I cut that one substantially more. I brought that down to 5,000.
There's nothing stabilized about the fire chief's salary and how we're gonna manage that any different?
We can't make any changes until there's a change to an organizational structure, at which point it takes a year to go into effect. So there will be no budget change for 2025.
Is that still intended for a warrant article this year to change the structure?
Yes.
We're finalizing it on Monday.
Yep, okay.
To go back to the telephone question at the PD, the increase was requested in 2024 to add cell phones to 4 of the cruisers. So I'm thinking that it's just a matter of posting. Maybe not all invoices have posted yet. And if you really want to know about the service contracts, I think I found the answer to that as well. It's IT services and then the lens lock body cameras. Yep.
Half of that was funded by
There was a grant for that.
Correct.
Other than the 191 line, the gas line, did anybody have anything else?
Just, so back on 183, the training, actual is 3349 this year, and you get 8,500, is that assuming that you have full
Correct.
staff? So that's based on full staff?
Correct.
Okay, and the same with the protective gear?
Yes. And a lot of that, we have year-end invoices that are coming in that we'll be posting to that. Did you change 191 for the gas and diesel?
That was my question. What was the suggestion?
Oh, sorry, that got missed. The suggestion was 5,000.
Okay.
That's reasonable.
10,000 now, and year end, we're looking close to 3,700. Making 5,000 seems to the rate they're using it. Anything else on 7?
Building.
Let's see. 8. Oh, actually, sorry.
Oh, emergency management salary, did you wanna?
Yeah, on the bottom of 7, apologies. I skipped over that.
Line number 210.
Right on the bottom. Yeah. So that's, yeah, 3,500, and I recommended 3%. See the sheets, where'd it go? Say it was, yeah, it's another $105. Nothing crazy, but that's 3%.
So I know it's a separate function,
Yes.
but it is also an existing employee who's doing it, not right now, right? It's
Correct.
Right?
Fine, yeah.
So we're basically, you wanna add an increase to the function. I mean, cause she's got, there's salary increase in here for her.
Yes, but this is all
Yes, but this is very separate.
Additional.
Separate, yeah.
Yeah.
It's purely a recommendation.
Yeah, yeah,
There is
yeah,
absolutely
Yeah,
more we
I
can
get it.
talk about.
yeah.
But it's $105, so my recommendation would be to bring it to 3,605.
I agree with that.
And I like the consistency.
Sorry. Now on to page 8.
No.
Thank you, Mike.
Anyway,
In an attempt to be fair and equitable to try to cut every large department, I recommended 5,000 out, reduction from, in line item, sorry, I'll get everybody on the same page, 226, the mowing, from 25,000 to 20.
oh man. How about 15?
What was the rationale for the?
Remember, this is where
So
they've
we're a
got
couple
it,
years behind, right?
we're a couple years
road
behind.
Management, the roadside.
Right.
The plan is to
exactly.
put it out to bid in the spring and see if we can get the whole town done,
That'd be great.
rather than, I mean, we're,
Meal.
Could be so far.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah,
Are we gonna have to do the whole town every year?
no,
no, I think once you do it once and then you,
you should be able
Then
to
you
do
Stagger
maintain
it.
it.
3 to 4.
Does the whole town need done at once? Cause I
That-
thought they mowed our road pretty well, so I'm thinking, wouldn't it make more sense to just have a yearly estimate and just plug in a yearly amount?
well, that's what we're
for-
doing for $10,000 a year. It's what he can get done with that $10,000 allocated each year.
About a quarter of it or a third of
Not
the
even.
town? Or?
Right.
So what if we say, what if we were recommend a 3-year, every road gets mowed once every 3 years? What do you
You'd
think
have to
that
get
would
that from
cost?
Steve, right?
Yep.
I mean, I think of the few things he really kind of asked for and talked about, this was
I was
one of
very
them.
hesitant on this one. I purely did it for balancing. I didn't even
I'm
really like
reluctant
it.
Poor guy
to
didn't complain once that he
micromanage
hasn't been able to do any
how
work all
someone else
year.
runs their department. I mean, there are roads that may not need to be cut or done, and others that may need it all the time, depending on the foliage and the environment of that road. I think the road department should make the decisions. We shouldn't be micromanaging it.
And I think when he says he's to do all the roads, like, my road got done this year, I don't think they'd be doing those roads again. 'cause
Right.
It's
Right, that's-
because he's 2 years, but I think it was 2022 and 23, it wasn't done at all.
Yep.
So this gets us back to a good place. Okay,
And
that's
you
what I
can do
understand.
$15,000 a year, hopefully going forward.
I'm not comfortable making the big
So leave that at
cut.
25.
I think we should. I think he recommended this. I think looking at the fuel line instead, if you want to make a cut someplace.
Just on that though, on the mowing, it's contract service, it's all contract service.
Right.
Owen, had you looked at that fuel line? And
I
made a
did, and I didn't
suggestion?
touch it because it's at 45 and the new number is
You
40.
go all the way to the right.
60, oh, 45, okay.
He requested
Yeah,
60,
60,
but now the recommendation is
45.
45. So I
Okay.
think 15's already been cut out of that, which is about as tight as I probably want to go on that one. I would,
Yep.
So I didn't look at that one, no,
Okay.
to answer your question more directly.
About 2,000 off the mowing line. Replace a window or two around here.
I'd be all right with that. I'd support that.
Yeah, I'd be okay with that too.
We're looking at 226, hey?
226.
226,
Yeah.
mowing, bring it down to 23,000 and we'll free up 2,000 for roads and buildings.
I can live with that.
So we'll put that in as a placeholder for now.
Okay.
3, 2.
It's not that drastic of a modification,
it's-
and
Right.
It's less than,
Reasonable.
So then the next one I had obviously, which is the big one, the roads total, is in here at TBD. I talked about 75, because that's what I was able to scrape out of this with all the parts and pieces, which now that we've talked it through, I don't even know if we'll get there, but, splitting between roads and building maintenance, I think is a very good point, and that seemed to meet some consensus in the room if I was understanding it correctly. So maybe for now, a placeholder on that would be 50,000. And then we see what might be left for the buildings and we try to put in a little more towards the buildings as well. Does that seem like a reasonable number for folks?
what would you think about coming back to it after we get to the end?
that's what I was
Come
gonna
up with a
ask.
total and then come back to assign it?
Yep,
Yeah,
you
that's,
can do it that way as well.
We'll just revisit, we'll come back to 245, yeah.
Ellen, you're actually doing all the math for us, right?
I am.
Thank you. I've been doing it by hand. Okay, that's probably it for 8, unless anybody has some questions on those
Land,
3 items at the bottom.
just in case Tom's watching, I wanna know if anybody looked into getting prisoners to mow our landfills. For you, Tom.
But I made the sandwiches, I'm ready for them.
Yes.
We would have to purchase the equipment. It would not be a
We're gonna
win-win.
have to sit in conversation, hold on, there's gotta be
Then we'd have to
telephones or
maintain it.
postage somewhere we can talk about, right?
Little
Sun
something.
is smiling.
9, page 9.
Oh, I already skipped.
it's nothing there.
I
Nothing
didn't
there.
have anything
Nope.
I looked at there.
Wait, are solid waste collection fees, that's for what?
That's what we
That's what we pay to get rid of it?
Yep, to haul it.
What about the extremely unpopular idea of dump stickers? A $10 per year dump sticker to offset.
I like that.
It's been discussed, but then the concern is that people are just gonna be dumping their trash on the sides of roads and.
$10?
Anyway,
Oh.
They do anyway, yeah.
Christ.
Didn't, the Board of Selectmen didn't like it though?
The Board of Selectmen, actually, Chairman, John Warren was the one that brought it up. I mean, it came up for discussion, but it just never got to a point of.
He had proposed that several years ago.
Yes.
keep trying.
Yes.
Personally, I still think it's a good idea. You Use
Makes
it,
sense, but-
your taxes pay for all these other services in town, you know, I don't think a dump sticker is out of the ordinary. Personal opinion.
Coming out of all residents' pockets, one way or the other. I mean,
True.
either whether it's on your tax bill and for your property value or your, as part of the
Yeah.
registration,
But it
right?
Say that with anything,
encourages
right?
the people to actually use the dump as opposed to the roadside, is a good idea. And any kind of fee would discourage people from using the dump. They would
Probably
use
wouldn't
the
even
back
take that
40
many,
and
just a few people being more of a pain. I don't know.
people who
Just
want to
to-
pay are already hiring, garbage services to come to their houses. People who don't want to, who don't feel the need to pay or can't afford to pay anything or, will go and youth down.
It's like $20 a year wouldn't be that bad, but.
I
But
paid
a lot of
25
people
last
would
time.
pay it,
I
and a
was
lot
in
of
trouble.
people wouldn't pay it, and who's gonna pay the people that
didn't
make
dump it
sure
on the side
that
of
the
the
right
road.
stickers are on the,
Dumpster, so
Thank you,
I only use the dump to
Anyway.
heat the building.
Anyway, all right.
Too many side conversations, I got us off, my bad.
Bad, no, it's my fault for
Apologies.
bringing it up, couldn't help it.
9, anything else on 9?
Animal control, salary?
No, 261, they requested 5,000, but they're getting 7,000.
And they've expended 6,991 as of 2000.
Okay, so it's just an
So
oopsie on their part.
what this is as a result of is the bags, when you go in and put your recyclables in, those bags had been recycled in the past, but what happens is people aren't as good cleaning out their containers, and you have liquids and oils and stuff, so no longer recycling the bags as much. They're eventually recycled with the rest of the plastic products, but we're not reusing them multiple times before they're replaced. Trying to keep it as sanitary as a recycling center can be.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, 262 animal control salary, that was one of the ones with the 3% I recommended, that's $150. So 5,150.
Still going good with pen and paper.
now we're back on the rec page, and that's been,
We done with 9?
General
Anything else on
assistance. There's a feeling we probably don't wanna touch any of those.
I think that they got voted very well with the
Yes.
warrant
The
last
warrants.
year, so that seemed like a pretty clear.
And
Keep
this is one of those situations where we have current expenditures posting to the account. I mean, we are going to go over budget. We
So,
are over budget now.
Just to define, if we're talking about general assistance, which is 265 through 272, or the
Oh, true, I might
services
not
we're
be
talking
talking about the right one.
yes, that, the warrant article was for those.
Yes,
items.
it's for
Last year, the
273
budget
through
committee
286.
Outside
condensed all of those
contractors,
items.
right, yeah.
But yes, general assistant has gone, assistance,
Gone over.
It's been used and used fully this year, okay.
yep,
Okay,
good.
That's
People
what
need
it's
to know
there
why they're
for.
getting it.
right.
Page 10,
The line items 273 to 286, did those go out to warrant last year?
yeah, that's what I was, those went on warrant and those got approved.
It's a lump.
Approved. And now they're on, so instead of being on a warrant, they're back into the
Yeah.
budget? Okay.
Everybody's favorite topic, rec. Rec salaries, I don't know if I'm doing the math right, and I'm almost positive I'm not. But if the thought was an additional or a reduction of 25% of her total salary, so that it, what is that number? Because for some reason, the math I'm doing is wrong.
So you want to put 25% in the an additional 25% into the operating budget?
So 75%
So-
operating budget, 25%.
It would be the halfway
revolving, or
mark.
the other way?
Would it be the halfway mark, or was there a raise for the director's salary?
There was no merit increases done in 2024.
Okay, so it'd be whatever
Okay.
that difference is divided
So
by
it's the
two.
difference between 89,150 and 114,560. Oh, maybe my number is right then, because I got 12,705, which did not seem like
12, no,
enough.
it doesn't,
So wait, so the 12 comes out of the rec revolving? Would come out of the rec revolving?
you'd have been at 20.
Correct.
Okay.
So the 12 times 2 would be the difference.
Get 12,705.
And I came up with 12,740. It's a matter of
Sorry.
12,740, we're $35 difference, so.
Yeah, so.
It's pretty close to what I had, just with
so
the
that
handwritten
was
stuff
right. It
last
just
time.
Seems way too
I'll
small.
have the different.
Okay,
Because
so-
50%'s already in there, so you're only going another halfway.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So maybe call it 12,725, just to split the difference for now, for the math's sake. Yeah.
Yeah,
Roughly
12.75, or
the
just
same number,
12.7?
Or 12,700, call it 12,700. For math,
So we're reducing that
what?
by 12,700 for a total of 101,860, is that correct?
That sounds right, minus
Yes.
4. 101,850, yep.
I have 860.
Oh, my 5 went the wrong way.
Okay.
So under rec programs, there's $2,000 for the Legacy Leader programming. Could we take that out of the revolving fund? Because isn't that for programs?
Legacy Leaders, though, that's not one that they pay, correct?
Correct.
So
But I
no.
thought they could use revolving fund money on any programs.
They can, I think, for that one there, since there's no other
There's
offsetting
no,
revenue coming in.
yeah, there's
for that
no
program.
fee generated from offering that.
Like, you
to-
don't see fees for flag
Free.
football and things like that in here, because it's all generated, the fees pay for the program.
Right. And that, so there's no fee for Legacy Leader, so it has to come out of budget. And it can't come out of revolving fund because no money is put in by the
Well, no,
Legacy
no, no, no,
Leaders.
it could.
Okay.
I think it could come out of rec, anything
Right.
for the rec program can come out of rec revolving. I think
then
her
it
thought is
might
this is a
not
program that
balance.
doesn't even pay for itself at all, because it's
Mm-hmm.
free.
What about line 290? Oh, sorry.
Well, let's finish this one up real quick.
Yep.
But, I mean,
I'm just saying, if there's $2,000 there, we're looking at cutting, and we're doing, you know, heat, electric, 1,000 here, 1,000 there. I think $2,000 could be taken from the revolving
because it's
fund.
programmed.
This program.
Because it's programming.
And it's not a one-to-one relationship between the money that comes in and the money
Right.
that gets spent, right?
Right.
Yeah, so I agree with that.
I think we could.
Okay.
Um,
Good for me. So-
what about the pathway? Line 292,
We committed that at our last,
but it says here ARPA. I thought that was coming.
So she was asking for an increase of $6,200 to add the paving, the pathway paving into that. It went from 24,000 to 30,200,
Oh, and you guys,
and we backed it out.
okay.
Great.
We backed it out, and then we moved the beach gate monitor stipend into that from the salary line. So that's where the other $800 is coming from.
So wait, where is the beach gate now?
It's in that same line, that 292.
Okay, so do you wanna just change the note then that's on 287?
Yep, it needs, exactly. That's what needs to happen, is that note needs to move from 287 down to 292.
There it is.
What about line 290? Dues and conferences? Actuals are 626, is that,
There are conferences at the end of the year.
is it end of year?
Yep.
Okay.
3 days.
Ellen, do you happen to have the number on the, line 292 on the mowing for 2023? I feel like that creeps up every year, or jumps up.
You're looking for just the mowing cost?
Yeah, well, now it's kind of might be more difficult because it's lumped in rec,
Right.
park, field, beach, maintenance. But I feel like the mowing cost used to be like around 10, and then it was 15, and
They
then,
did creep up, yeah.
I think this was the final year of the contract. It needs to go back out for bid for the upcoming year, so I think she's just using the same.
but it was at 10 before Marston
Right.
started getting maintained.
when Marston was supposed to cost us nothing. That's how it was presented.
Neither
So-
here nor there, that makes no difference to the
it-
actual conversation we're having now, so let's focus on the numbers in front of us before we get too off
Okay,
topic.
so let me restate that then. Since I was under the impression from the beginning that Marston was supposed to be donation, I know it's a good thing, and a lot of people do a lot of work there. I like the field, it's beautiful. But it was told to the voters that it wasn't gonna cost us anything. So I think we have some responsibility to at least look at it, seeing if we should keep that line lower, because that's how it was presented.
Do you have a recommendation?
I
for that
think we
line?
should take $5,000 off the mowing line.
I would just like to say that I don't think it was ever suggested to the voters that there wouldn't need to be maintenance done at the field.
Well, I guess I and others misunderstood. Well, there's nothing worth I mean to be argumentative, it's just, that mowing line seems high and it keeps getting higher, so I don't know if there's any support on the board to maybe
I
take
think we need to
5,000 off?
maintain it, and if it's there, we gotta maintain
I'd
it.
entertain dropping it.
Doesn't seem like,
No, we have to maintain it. It would look horrible. I mean,
Yeah,
then
we
the kids
become
couldn't use
It's a
it.
safety issue
Yeah.
too, yeah.
Yeah.
How about cut 2,000 and cut it one interval, one mowing interval out of it.
The grass keeps growing.
I mean, it is safety.
And they're gonna renegotiate the contract, so
But it's,
see what they can do then and maybe find a lower price.
The grass keeps growing, the bushes keep growing, the safety issues keep existing.
yeah, and then the taxes keep going up for people that never use it, so. That's all. It's,
Anything
it's
else
not gonna,
on-
it's not gonna go any farther, so we can, yeah.
Anything else on page 10? Okay, page 11. I think outside of library total, the grand total on the rest of that page is $2,300. And I think we've looked at the library pretty closely. Does anybody have any comments on those direct lines, though? Okay, and then, if nothing on that, then page 12 is just the summary numbers. So, that is the line by line.
I have a net reduction of $38,345.
Boy, where did my math go so horribly wrong?
So,
You got 38,000?
do you wanna go back through your notes and see,
Do
maybe, did we
indeed.
miss something?
No, I'm sure my math is wrong.
Well, I don't mean to point out bad math, sorry. I just was,
Oh,
I think there's a couple of few items that weren't.
there was a few, but that's not the 75 by any stretch of
Right.
the imagination that I came up with, and I'm looking at it now, I think I was playing with the warrants, which is obviously not something.
okay.
I don't know if I have those in here correctly. I think that might be what I messed up. I'm trying to look at what I highlighted when I was playing with different things. 38,000 appears to be the total.
$38,345, correct.
Wow, that makes way more sense. I don't know how I thought I found 75. That doesn't
Sounded
I was gonna
really
say, you're
good.
doing pretty good.
incredible.
Sound good.
Just shows how tight the budget is, though.
Yes, select board and budget committee now paid.
Hey, members,
No. So, okay, so if the number is roughly 38, based on what we've talked about, and there was two primary items that we've identified that we'd like to put additional funds into, one being road maintenance and one being building maintenance. Are there thoughts on how to split the 38 that people have to potentially put into those line items?
I think if, in my personal opinion, if you're gonna put it towards that shim and seal coat line, anything below $30,000, I'm not sure how much they can,
I was thinking 25 is almost like a minimum contract number.
yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna question whether at that small of a number, if it makes sense to try to split it between two or just put it in one area of greater need.
Yeah,
Like-
because if that warrant article gets funded anyway, you're talking $7,000 if it's not in the building maintenance.
So maybe that's a good one to, or a good avenue right now, just to sort of remind, oh yeah, that is what I did. That's what I was doing. I was pulling out of,
It was with the warrants.
I was pulling out of the warrant and trying to put back into the, operating and double counting.
Okay, you were sick, we understand.
It's tricky.
No, I was trying to watch a kid wrestle while I was doing it. Yeah, wrong.
I like it.
Okay, so the building, so there's 10 going to police tech. Sorry, I'm just trying to remind everybody of what the warrants are before we sort of want to decide on where these things might go, which
I see the one.
back up 73, right? Talk about.
Page 7.
Yeah, thank you. So there's ambulance, 285 in the road construction. New roads already have a big number. SCBA, capital reserve 30, highway truck, capital reserve 70, police technology 10, and then town building maintenance 18. And oh, sorry, invasive species 10. So, right now, there is some going to both. Obviously, the road has a much bigger piece for those three projects. So.
But those are specific road construction projects and don't do anything to
Not
touch.
maintenance.
Or seal coating,
Correct.
okay.
Or crack seal or pothole or any of that, yeah.
I mean, what, I guess I'd be interested in your opinion, Tim, and yours, John, like, or you two as well, Ellen, you know, like, as board of select or, you know, town administrator, like, where the bigger hole is it, you know, the road maintenance or building maintenance, or which one of these is in more need?
We've done, I'll take the floor, I guess. We've done a significant amount of work to the buildings this year. We've been able to accomplish quite a bit with the funding that has been allowed. But there are obviously, I mean, like, we've dealt with some of the issues that have been creeping up for years, you know, like the leaking roof at the fire station and Outback. I
Outback,
mean,
right.
Outback was significant.
Looks
There's
great
still-
back there, by the way.
Thank you. They have done great. But, you know, for the most part, even before I came on board, I mean, we had boilers that needed to be replaced, so there have been items that have been addressed that were significant needs, so we have made great strides. It's just a matter of keeping that momentum going so that we're not in a further deferred status. So,
The roads got hurt bad last year with the warrant article not passing.
So, John, I'm gonna be mean just because people do watch this. Would you mind coming up and
Sorry.
getting on a mic? Just because,
Sorry, John.
I'm gonna put you on the spot, but you spoke up. Ha ha!
Sorry.
You
All right.
shoehorned into it.
John Decker. So, yeah, the roads basically took a big hit last year with the warrant article not passing. There are other road projects that were identified, but we kind of cut it down to what would fit into the budget. Also, the maintenance of the buildings they're really tight too, so, yeah, we could use the money either place and or both.
But if you had to pick one,
For that amount of money,
Right,
I understand what you're saying. It's a good point.
I think if you put it in the shim and seal coat line, and if it
It-
doesn't, if you need to
You
move
you
some.
guys
Right,
can always,
right.
you can always do a line
Right,
item
so that's
transfer if
not
they
worth
presented.
doing
Exactly.
roughly under, shim and seal coat, if it's under 30,000?
I was thinking 25, but 30 I think is a perfectly legit number too. So if you're at 30,
What if
what's
we did
38?
What if we did 30 to the seal coating and then put the rest in the building?
Yeah.
It would do something.
sounds reasonable.
and, yeah, and it's there, and obviously you
Right.
guys can, you know,
Right, I mean, that's,
Move it around, isn't it?
actually, that's the kind of what I was floating in my head, sitting back there.
30 and 8. I think those make sense. And I think the other big thing that does too is that doesn't zero the line item on road maintenance, which I think is a big deal because now monies can move as
And keep
opposed
in
to
mind,
zero
that's not a
being
zero, when you look at the MS 737.
Right, it's not.
It's
Right,
rolled up.
it's not each, yeah, it's only the functional,
Yeah, that function is actually all part of
Okay.
road maintenance.
Good to know. That's different on the 737. But
so just, your percentage, your 3.82 versus 4%, under your 3.82 versus the 4%. So is there room to say 30 and 10 versus 30 and 8?
$5,616.20, I think, was the difference to make that 4% even. $5,212.
Okay, so that's,
So you could do.
so we can take
can
it
we
to
make it even
10?
30 and 10?
a 30 and 10?
Yeah.
You could, I think a 3.82's got a better chance of passing.
I'd
I
love
think
to
it
keep
might
that
make a
as far away
stronger
from
statement
four
to
as
come in.
possible.
Okay, fair.
Yeah, you're right.
That's
Just a
fair.
thought.
Yeah.
It's actually to
Worth more
that.
than the $5,000.
To that end, for a passability discussion, because I think everybody in this room who has looked at these budgets as exhaustively as we all have at this point now, understand that the default hurt and it made some sacrifices, and if we don't want a default again, the question is not only do we need to put forward a responsible budget, but we need to put forward a responsible budget we think will get voted for. So I'm wondering if perhaps even maybe if we put in 30 to the road budget and don't put anything into the building budget this year and let that 8,000 reduce the percentage slightly, do we have a better chance of passing the default at a 3.4 versus a 3.8? Do people think that matters? I don't actually have an opinion on this one.
How
way or
many
the other.
points
I'm
is
walking-
it?
It's not
How
gonna
many
go down
points
that
is it
much.
actually?
probably about that,
I
because.
think,
You think?
I think the average voter
Did you just say
doesn't look at the
5,000?
tax rate, I think they look at the dollar amount, they look at the dollar amount over last year.
That's true.
I could be
Because it-
wrong, but I think,
I think you're probably right, because that's
because we
how
had a
it's
hard time
represented, right?
educating people on that tax rate increase and how that works.
But
and
that's
that-
how it's on the warrants.
Right.
I think you got a good point, is it's dollar amount.
And that's why I think as the Board of Selectmen, we tried to balance between the appropriations and the warrant articles and the operating budget to not put too much in the operating budget and really slim down the warrant articles.
Yep, no, I agree, and I think that's a good call.
We could go 30 at the roads, 5 at building, and then explain it
That-
at town deliberative.
Seems like a pretty good compromise to me. Does that make sense to folks? People want?
That would drop us below the 3.82.
Yeah,
It can
I
be
mean-
explained at deliberative.
Yeah.
Just a thought.
That works.
So, then, to finalize the budget that Ellen has so very nicely been keeping for us, that would be an additional 30,000 into line. Anybody can find it? Who's gonna get to it first?
244.
Ah, there we go.
245.
Okay, so 30,000 into 245. And then the additional 5,000 would go into one, two.
I don't know, we just found $3,000, we're gonna leave it off buildings now for a couple of points?
Oh, that's a good argument too.
I think I would go the other way. I think
Why
we
does every
worked so hard.
argument sound good?
You're a good compromise. We worked so hard to find that 3. I think we should keep it, honestly. I'd put it in buildings, and 3.82 sounds good to me.
Otherwise, I'm
My
gonna be
opinion.
shot because of the Legacy Leaders program.
Well, I was gonna lobby to put that back in, Karen.
I'm just,
All right, let's put it to buildings.
I do kind of like, I think you got a good point. I really, if there's anything we can do, and having it in the budget allows it to.
Yeah, having it in the budget makes it be there,
So
so
how about,
let's keep it.
Putting it into 142 miscellaneous? Well, that's THOB miscellaneous. That's not really where we probably want it. There's not really a generic catch-all, is
No,
there?
because they're building specific.
oh no, where's the community center?
But as we've discussed, you guys can move them around.
'Cause that's what-
And how much are we actually putting in there?
8,000, I think we're
great.
back to
Great.
8.
109.
109.
109.
Thank you.
Yeah, equipment, materials, supplies.
Material equipments.
Yeah, that's pretty broad. That can be used pretty
Okay,
good discretion, so
and you're putting how much in there?
8,000.
8,000.
So,
That brings 13.
leaving $345 on the table.
Let's put it in that 109.
300.
Hey, that's a window.
12 cents.
You can buy a window.
He came by freaking window for that. Jesus.
Maybe it's bar windows leaking.
How much was left?
Or 300 and, was it, you say 345?
45.
Put it in
345.
miscellaneous.
Let's
Nah.
leave it.
We'll leave it. So the question now, is everybody comfortable with the moves that have been made? Everybody's familiar enough with them that I think we could, and I'd be willing to entertain a motion to create the 2025 budget committee's recommended budget as the Board of Selectmen's budget amended in this meeting.
I guess I don't understand what you're.
I'm asking for a motion.
Can we take everything we've discussed?
Everything that we have said. So, let me-
Send that to the board.
Yes.
And we're gonna send that to the board.
Not to the board, to the voters. That would be, this would be our budget going before the public meeting.
The public.
Yes, to bring this to the public, hearing.
Yes.
Yes.
Would you like your N number?
Yes, please.
Sure, let
So
me get
I
there.
will so move that we approve this to bring to the public meeting.
For the total of,
$5,057,788.
And I'll second that.
motion by Sandra, second by Karen. All of those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Right.
Opposed?
Good job.
Motion passes 10-0.
Ellen, could you read me that number again?
5,057,788.
Could've had another window.
Excellent. Well, thank you, everybody, for that. I appreciate the civil and candid discussion. I appreciate the compromising. I am glad that we're able to work together and come to a pretty reasonable consensus.
I also think it's worth noting that the select board did a very good job.
We had
As
a
well.
great start.
Yes.
Honestly, everything I was doing is only possible because of what was already there.
So thank you, you guys.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, John. Thank you very much.
Appreciate it, department heads, appreciate the board. Meeting minutes review. 12/19.
Oh, no, what happened?
I actually read them, which is pretty exciting. No, I shouldn't say that out loud, should I?
I do have a couple of minor,
I got one.
just line 23 should say updated school budget review.
Oh, yep. Hold over from the last one, I'm sure. Okay, so 23, change town to school.
And then line 109, just to clarify, the delivered sessions have been added, town February 1st and school February 5th.
And we're in town before February 1st and school before February 5th.
And then line 110, February 7th has been scheduled as a backup snow day for, oh, it does say school, sorry. Yep, no, nothing there.
Okay.
Didn't we come up with a backup for the town as a snow day too, or am I
Always
crazy?
the following Saturday.
Following Saturday at 9 AM.
One item I found, item 67, it says there is no corrosion in the pipes. There is nothing but corrosion in the pipes. So I think the word no just needs to be struck.
There's lots of.
Lots, yeah, I think it just, no wasn't supposed to be in there. And then my other question, line 66, and Danielle, this is a question from you. It says, last night Metro Group put chemicals in the water. I don't remember talking about a Metro Group. So I'm thinking they misheard who it was. Was it EEI? I think it was EEI that put the chemicals in, right? It
what I
wasn't
remember.
Palmer and
Yeah.
Sakar, because EEI was coming in and
I think
working on the
they
balance.
mixed up another group that was coming in and do a eval.
But you could also just say last night chemicals were put.
Yep.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, that's a fair point. I don't think it matters. So for that, I will make a recommendation to just delete Metro Group in line 66. To your point, I don't think that that is going to significantly impact anything.
So I had line 30, it says interest income was adjusted up to 5,000. I think it was adjusted up 5,000, not to 5,000.
Just about 5,000, so just delete the word two.
And then line 60, it just says something for tuition. I think it would be clarifying to say something for high school move-in tuition.
That was high school move-in.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Any other notes by anybody? So, I'll entertain a motion to approve the December 19th meeting minutes with the update to line 23, changing town to school. Line 30, deleting the word to read adjusted up $5,000. Line 60, adding high school move-in before the word tuition, so item 4 reads something for high school move-in tuition. 66, deleting Metro Group. 67, deleting the word no. 109, adding town in front of February 1st and school in front of February 5th.
I'll make a motion to approve as just stated.
Second.
Motion by Karen,
Seconded?
second by Donna. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion passes 10-0. And subcommittee reports.
CIP, we just met before this meeting. We have finalized the report that we're gonna submit for the town report, both the spreadsheet itself and the written narrative. One thing that we all agreed that we feel is necessary is for the CIP committee to kind of meet a little bit past this, because there's a lot of questions about, you know, what should be in the report and what shouldn't be, right? And particularly when it comes to like, you know, something like the invasive species fund, that's $10,000, should that be in the capital improvement plan? Or, and if it is, so lots of questions like that. So the committee decided that we're going to try to do like a workshop type of session to clarify all of that, so that we have a better guide for future committees. So, and then next week, I think we agreed that I will bring copies of the report and the narrative for everybody, and we can go through that then.
Yep. Excellent, thank you. You guys meet Jeff?
Nope.
Good job on that committee, I gotta say. You put a lot of time in, I think probably more time than put in that committee in the past 10 years cumulative, this past year.
Pretty well this year.
Well done, everybody, thank you.
So hopefully it helps for the future.
Well, and again, there's still like a lot of things that we debated that were like, we can't just keep pushing this
Yep.
down the road, make people figure it out, and start fresh every year, so.
That's the tricky bit. Any other business? In that case, our next meeting is January 9th, next Thursday. And we will be talking and having this same exact discussion for school budget. And having a presentation on CIP. So with that, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
Adjourn. Make a motion, we adjourn.
Motion by Donna, second by Sandra. All those in favor? Aye. 9:05, meeting is adjourned.